These are a pair of speakers that are about as decisive in the Bang & Olufsen world as Marmite is in a staff room. Some people love them, some people hate them. I wasn't sure, I've never listened to them, so I thought, let's buy some, fix them, and make my own decision. Let's start at the point where there is little debate. These speakers are coming on to being 30 years old, and they would fit into any modern New York flat, London flat, any Instagram-worthy post. These will work. They stand at about 1 metre tall, maybe a shade over, and they're not super heavy. I think they're about 6 kilos. So you can lift them, move them around. They're not going to break your back. They're not going to flex your floor. They're not going to cause you any problems. They literally blend into any area thanks to their shiny aluminium coloured backs. These are genuine metal, feel really solid, and reflect any wall coverings that you've got, any paint, and they fit into literally any background that you put them in. I was desperate to find out, what do these actually sound like? So I went out on eBay and I bought a pair. I thought, I'll just buy a broken pair, I'll fix them up, and then maybe I'll flog them once I've had a bit of enjoyment out of them, I've had a bit of use. So if anyone's interested, this is how you get into these speakers. Right, this kind of lifts up. You have to pull it, obviously I can't do it one-handed. You kind of pull it and lift it up. And this is what it looks like underneath the cover. So at the top you've got a port. This is the port for the bass. And you've got a tweeter about there. And 2 sort of woofers that are about 4-ish inches. To get into it, there's a load of torque bits. I found it easier to remove one of the speakers first, lift up from the middle, and then the rest can kind of slide out. Each of these torque bits you remove if you want to remove the amp. I did have to remove it for reasons I'll show in a few photos. So if you do go and buy a set of these, 99.8% of the time, you'll find that the foam is rotten and all fallen all over the amplifier and moulded itself to it, which isn't ideal and could start a small fire. So you want to get that cleaned up, use some electrical cleaning solution, something like that. Clean around the amplifier and get all that old gunky foam out. I then relined my speaker with some sticky back foam that I bought off eBay. And the reason I used that instead of the Bang & Olufsen stuff is it was a lot cheaper, of course. And this stuff is actually thicker, and I don't think it's going to rot in quite the same way. At least not for a long time anyway. So this stuff should work possibly better. All it's designed to do is to stop reflections really inside the tube, and it should do that job just fine. The other common issue with these speakers is the rubber surrounds go hard and brittle and crack. So I spent some time first just testing the speakers lightly under low volume just to make sure they actually still worked, which they did. And then I got some new rubber surrounds from Hi-Fi and cleaned up the old material and redid the surrounds. Finally, I resealed all the modules back in with this 5mm 3M sticky back foam tape. So when the time comes to connect them, you've got a couple of choices. You can either use the power links and connect them to another B&O product, or you can use the line and connect them to just about anything that you like. A smartphone, straight out of your smartphone, straight out your television, or through a converter. And the LR is for if you're using the power link, you need to tell it if it's left or right. And if you're using the line, it's the third switch on the right, so right over. I chose to just plug them in with the line just to test on them. And that seemed to work fine. Just a normal figure of 8 power supply to power the amplifier at the bottom as well. Okay, so I've spent a bit of time building these up, and now I've listened to them for a little while, and I think I'm ready to make a few conclusions on them. And I've got some ideas why they might have some mixed reviews. Firstly, most of them that you buy now do need a little bit of work to bring them up to standard. And if someone buys them off eBay second-hand, doesn't do any work to them, then they're probably not going to sound very good. The foam's probably all rotten inside, and the driver's surrounds are probably rotten. So yes, they will not sound good in that condition. No speaker will. The other thing maybe explaining the reviews at the time is that they were quite expensive. They were nearly £1,800 in the early 90s. So that's a lot of money. That's a big chunk of money. You could have bought a decent used car for that. So they weren't a cheap speaker. So what are they good for these days? I mean, these days they're quite cheap. You can pick them up for around £200 for a good working set. If you want a different colour like a black or red, they're a little bit more expensive. But still a good bargain, really, and one of the best bargain speakers you can get. Are they a hi-fi speaker? I would say no, mainly because they've got a sharp bass roll-off around 80 Hz, and that's partly due to the small drivers, but what they were actually originally designed for, they're originally designed to be part of a surround sound system for a media setup. So you'd have a pair of speakers up front, maybe Beolab 6000s, a subwoofer, say like a Beolab 2, and then these 6000s would be rear speakers. So this is explaining really now why they don't make such a good music speaker. However, if you're paying a couple £100 for them, if you live in a flat or something with shared walls, that low bass response may help you prevent you getting complaints from the neighbours, so that could be good. In a background music setting, in a dining room or something like that, they'll sound fantastic. They're not overpowering the conversation. And it depends what kind of speakers you've come from previously. If you're used to small Bluetooth speakers or like a Crossley turntable with the little speakers in, you'll think these sound fantastic, really good. And they've got a good clear sound, so they're not disappointing at all, in my opinion. And I've listened to some really nice speakers, and they're okay. They are okay, and they're good value for money. But what I'm personally going to use them for is I'm going to use them for TV speakers, because I guess that's what really they were intended for originally. And they will surpass the built-in speaker in any telly. And if you're in the market for a soundbar, you pay £200, you'll buy a mediocre soundbar for that. And as soon as you leave the shop, it'd be worth £100, and in a further couple of years' time, it will be next to worthless. You pay £200 for these, or £250, something like that. They're still going to be worth the money in 5 years' time. You've not lost anything. It's money that's safe. So that's something to bear in mind as well. And they'll enhance any kind of film watching experience. They'll enhance any live concerts you might watch on the telly and things like that. So, and they'll fit into any living room. They'll look good. They'll impress anyone that comes into the house, that kind of thing. They're a cool looking piece of kit. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Basically, the conclusions are, if you're after something with big bass, avoid them. And if you're after something like a soundbar or some background speakers, they're absolutely perfect for that kind of job. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.